You've seen it in the movies countless times. A massive streak of light across the sky, followed by an explosion that lights up the night like a massive fireworks display. A huge chunk of rock from space has just crashed into the moon. But how would this impact our world? And what would happen to us if a giant meteor were to smash into the moon? Well, buckle up because we're about to find out. So let's start with the obvious. While many people have looked up at the moon and wondered what would happen if we nuked it, the truth is that no one really knows what would happen if a meteor hit the moon. After all, it's never happened before. However, scientists have estimated that over 100 million atom bombs worth of energy would be released if a large enough meteor were to strike the moon. So it's safe to say that things would get pretty wild. But hey, at least they'd be beautiful, right? The best part of this scenario is that there is a very slim chance that something like this will happen anytime soon. That's because the moon is quite far away from Earth, and there aren't any huge meteors on a direct collision course with it at the moment. However, researchers from NASA have identified several near-Earth asteroids that are much larger than the one that wiped out the dinosaurs. Some of these asteroids may be as big as 5 miles wide. Thankfully, none of them are currently headed for the moon or Earth. The first step to figuring out what would happen if a meteor hit the moon is determining where exactly it would land. That's because the size of the resulting explosion would depend entirely on the location of the impact. The surface area of the moon is around 14.6 million square miles, which is roughly 1/4 the size of Earth's total landmass. So the chances of a meteor hitting the moon are quite low. However, it's possible that such an event would occur near one of the moon's poles. These areas contain pockets of ice that have been shielded from the sun's rays for billions of years. Another important factor to consider is the angle at which the meteor strikes the moon. If it hits the lunar surface at a shallow angle, it could cause a chain reaction that destroys even more of the moon's crust. A direct hit could also cause the moon to wobble on its axis, which would drastically change the amount of sunlight we receive here on Earth. This could lead to complete chaos in our world, and it might not even matter if you lived in a dome on Mars. To understand what would happen if a meteor struck the moon, we need to consider the aftermath of the impact. For starters, the dust kicked up by the explosion would form a cloud that would block some of the sunlight reaching the Earth. This would result in a global dust cloud that would cover the entire planet. It would be so thick that it would appear dark even during the daytime. But wait, there's more. This dust cloud would also cause temperatures around the world to plummet, and the average global temperature could drop by as much as 18 degrees Celsius. What makes matters worse is that this wouldn't be a short-lived event. It could take months, if not years, for the dust to settle and for the temperature to return to normal. During this time, plant growth would be severely impacted, since the lack of sunlight and cold temperatures would make it impossible for crops to grow. This would lead to mass starvation and the collapse of the global food supply chain. If the meteor were to strike the moon at just the right angle, it could also cause tsunamis to brew across the globe. Even though the moon is roughly 238,000 miles away from the Earth, it still exerts a gravitational force on our planet. This force is what causes the tides to rise and fall every day. If the meteor were to strike the moon near its south pole, it could disrupt this gravitational balance. This could result in massive waves that would crash into coastal cities around the world, causing catastrophic damage and displacing millions of people. And let's not forget about the long-term effects. Over billions of years, the moon has played a crucial role in stabilizing Earth's tilt and keeping our planet habitable. Without the moon, our world would be a very different place. Temperatures would be more extreme, storms would be more intense, and the length of our days and years would be shorter. Plus, the moon's gravitational pull affects not only the tides, but also the way animals move and the chemical composition of our atmosphere. Changes to the moon could have profound effects on all living things on Earth. But what if the meteor didn't destroy the moon, but instead landed on it? Let's imagine that a meteor struck the moon and left behind a massive crater. This crater would become a new tourist destination, and researchers from all over the world would flock to the site to study it. Scientists would develop new technologies to explore the depths of the crater, and learn more about the composition of the moon. Governments would compete to launch the first manned mission to the crater, and the discovery of new resources could spark a new space race. Private companies would jump in to capitalize on the opportunity and offer space tourism packages to the crater. As more and more people visit the crater, new settlements would spring up around it, and a whole new economy would be created. And let's not forget about the media. The discovery of a meteor crater on the moon would be a major news story that would captivate the world. Journalists and photographers would do anything to get a glimpse of the crater, and the first images of the impact site would be sold to the highest bidder. The more dramatic the crater, the more money it would make. And who knows, maybe the crater would even become a new religious site, attracting pilgrims from all over the world. Of course, there's also the possibility that the meteor crater would become a symbol of humanity's hubris. After all, it would be a scar on the face of the moon caused by our failure to prevent the impact. Environmental groups would protest the exploitation of the crater and demand that it be turned into a protected reserve. Activists would argue that the crater is a sacred site that should be left undisturbed. And some people might even claim that the crater is cursed. As time goes on, the meteor crater would likely become a source of national pride for the country whose flag was planted at the site first. Tourists from around the world would flock to see it and learn about the history of the impact. The crater would become a symbol of scientific achievement and human exploration, and it would inspire future generations to push the boundaries of what's possible. In short, a meteor striking the moon could have both positive and negative consequences. It could lead to technological advancements and economic opportunities, or it could cause global disaster and environmental destruction. Ultimately, the outcome would depend on a number of factors, including the size and trajectory of the meteor, as well as the response of governments and international organizations. One thing's for sure, though, a meteor striking the moon would be an event that we humans would never forget. But hey, at least we'd have something cool to look at when we're not busy trying to survive. Okay, so now let's ramp things up to 11. What if the meteor wasn't just any meteor? What if it was a gigantic space rock from beyond our solar system? What if it was the size of a small planet? What if it shattered the moon into pieces that rained down upon the Earth? Yeah, okay, so obviously that would be bad. Like really, really bad. The end of the world kind of bad. So yeah, we might want to keep an eye on the skies, just in case. Now, it's your turn. What do you think would happen if a meteor hit the moon? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching. See you next time.